Good morning, guys. Welcome to a new episode of 7 Minute Grammar Notes, where we help you prepare for the grammar portion of your entrance tests in the most practical way possible. And how we do that? We do that by having you focus on a relatively concise set of topics as opposed to all of grammar, a relatively concise set of topics, or rather grammatical errors, in fact, which are tested the most in your entrance examinations, right? The errors on which most of your questions, 80% of your questions, more than that, sometimes are based on in your entrance examinations. Okay, I've talked about the course Pedagogy in detail in the intro video of the course, and you can watch that later if you haven't already. Right now, let's jump into the content of today's episode. So, guys, the modifier trap is one of those cases of subject verb agreements where most of where it's not really based on any kind of rule. For example, अगर आप देखें and हो गया वहाँ पे हमारा एक and rule था. Then you had the proximity rule for your coordinating conjunctions and correlating conjunctions like or, either or, neither nor, है ना ये सब के साथ. And then we had the appendage rule for the. But this is one case where the error is not really based on rule. The error is basically based on a typical mistake that students generally commit. ठीक है, और वो क्यों होता है मैं आपको बताता हूँ. देखो, नॉर्मली आपके जो सेंटेंसेस होते हैं वो कैसे होंगे. लेट्स से यू हैव अ सेंटेंस दैट राम ड्राइव्स a car. Okay, now in this case the verb is quite near to your subject, है ना, इसके काफी पास में है. So it's not really difficult to figure out कि okay, what is the appropriate verb subject for this verb. Drives के लिए क्या appropriate subject होना चाहिए? राम होना चाहिए. Ram happens to be singular in nature, and hence you go for the singular form of the verb, which is drives. तो यहाँ पे सब कुछ ठीक है. What happens in case of the modifier trap is the verb is actually placed at quite a distance, from the subject, from its actual true subject. Okay, कैसे, and वो distance कैसे create होता है? Distance ऐसे create होता है. There is after the primary subject, you'll actually have a very lengthy verbose modifier or a lengthy phrase जो बीच में आएगा. Okay, and then at the end of that phrase, you'll have some. And students क्या करेंगे? They will not be able, if they are not careful, they won't be able to figure out that the actual subject for this verb is the subject at the start, but rather they'll end up selecting the form of this subject based on the very last word of this phrase, okay, which I call the hook. Okay, तो अगर ये आपका plural निकल गया तो they'll end up going for the plural verb even though the actual subject may have been singular in nature. Okay, example में देखते, and this is exactly, by the way, what I call the modifier trap, right? Because this modifier is essentially serving as a trap here. ठीक है, इसका example देखो एक बार. This sentence says, most experts believe that the automotive industry's recent growth, which is mainly fueled by the sale of electric vehicles in major suburban areas of metropolitan cities. देखो कितना सारा extra आपका ये verbose वाला part आया है ना. So cities or suburban areas of metropolitan cities is or are likely to accelerate in the future. Now, if you're not careful about what will be the appropriate subject for this verb, you'll just end up assuming कि हाँ metropolitan cities is probably the appropriate subject, and because it is plural, you'll end up going for the plural form, जो कि गलत होगा. The appropriate subject for this, guys, is that ये जो आपका दिया ना, the automotive industry's recent growth, that's the appropriate subject, because most experts believe that the automotive industry's recent growth, and I'm going to skip the ये बीच वाला part मैं अभी skip कर रहा हूँ just for clarity. ठीक है, यहाँ से लेके यहाँ तक. So what the author actually wants to say is that the automotive industry's the recent growth is likely to accelerate in the future. That's what most experts believe. Now, this part in the red here, ये जो यहाँ पे red में जो part मैं underline कर रहा हूँ, this is just additional information provided about the main subject. Okay, and it's just grammatical. See, in the grammatical context, it is just functioning to distance the subject from the verb, right? हाँ, obviously उसका main काम ये नहीं है, वो तो main तो आपको content convey करना चाह रहे हैं, but grammatical context में अगर मैं देखूँ तो, right? So that's what it effectively ends up creating as a problem. Okay, so you have to be careful about that. So the automotive industry's recent growth is singular in nature, hence you need to go for the singular form of the verb. Okay, I hope that's clear. Let's look at a few more sentences. The first one says, according to many investors, the recent downturn in profit margins. देखो यहाँ से clear हो जाएगा आपको. There's a good chance that this might be the subject. The recent downturn in the profit margins. Anyhow, let's read. Of all the major startups in most of the booming industries is caused primarily by the pandemic. See, if you read this consciously, अगर आप उसको ध्यान देके पढ़ेंगे तो it's very clear that it's the recent downturn that is caused primarily by the pandemic. The part that is the later part, is basically some additional information that has been provided about the recent downturn in the profit margins, right? क्या है additional information that this भाई ये जो profit margin है ये major startups का है. The recent downturn is in the profit margins of the major startups in most of the booming industries, right? So that is the additional information provided. In this case, I will not call this a modifier. ना प्लीज आप वो confuse मत होना. हर बार वो modifier होना जरूरी नहीं है. Sometimes it can simply be a verbose and lengthy part of the sentence. Okay, so that's why आप पिछले slide में भी मैंने वहाँ पे उसको modifier / phrase लिखा हुआ है. So be careful about that. Anyhow, so in this case, you students might end up assuming industries to be the subject and उसको plural समझ के शायद plural mark कर दे, जो कि गलत होगा. The proper subject here will be the recent downturn in the profit margins of blah 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 blah, right? Which is singular in nature, and hence you want to go for the singular verb. Okay. Next one, ये वाला देखिए. Since the last elections, the lobbying effort initiated by environmental organizations, homeowners, and small business owners has or have increased awareness of pending environmental legislation. What has increased awareness of pending environmental legislations? Is it the small business owners? No. It is the lobbying effort, right, which has increased awareness of pending environmental legislation. So that's the main subject here, so far as this verb is concerned. And the lobbying effort happens to be singular in nature, so you want to go for the singular form of the verb. है ना? ये आपके sentences. Hence it needs to have has here, not have or are. Okay? So but again, like if you go by your assumptions, वापस से problem वही होगा कि अगर आप ध्यान नहीं देंगे, then you'll end up assuming that business owners is probably the subject here, which is plural, and you might just end up going for have here, which is not the, which will be incorrect. Okay, so yeah, so don't get stuck in the modifier trap. So a sentence for you to try. Most environmentalists believe that the adoption rate of ESG standards, which are usually based on the public policy mandates of the state, are likely to increase in the light of the UN policy amendments. You might want to check multiple verbs here. तो एक बार check करना. Be careful while you solve this question, and let me know if you think there's an error and in which part and how it should be corrected, if at all. ठीक. Okay, about me guys, for those of you who might be watching this episode for the first time, I'm Anupam Mishra. मेरे profile and credentials का video मैंने एक अलग से बना रखा है, so आप you can go on and click here and watch that, and then you can also watch the next video of the series by clicking here.